I want to do good morning, even though it's night time. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the You Needed This Today podcast.
Good morning with candles.
Hey, yeah, it's a mood in here. We've set some candles because Alpha has a light that's a hate crime. It's one of them is a straight up hate crime, I believe.
How dare you?
But it is. It's a hospital light color. You can't have that.
Look, I'm renting. Give me a break. It's not like I can set up all these automatic disco lights in this rented house.
Well, next time.
Sorry about it.
How you doing?
Good. So this is episode 3.
Yes.
I mean, unless we choose to release them in micro episodes, in that case, I don't know what episode this is, but this is the third conversation that we've had.
This is the third time we've sat down. Yeah. So, I was thinking about today in the shower before I came over what we could talk about, and the two things that came to mind for me was we can continue to talk about relating, not our relating, but just relating altogether.
Other people's relationships?
No, I'm sure we go there, but like your current dating,
oh yeah,
and like my current dating, and just the opposites in that, and my, and our swaps in it, or we could do a little unpack as it's Pride Month.
Oh, that would be nice.
And we can have a little talk around sexuality. What pride means, where you sit on the spectrum, where I sit on the spectrum. What feels more alive for you?
That would be nice. Maybe all of it. Maybe it's entwined.
Yeah. Well, I guess you've got to talk about dating if we're going to talk about pride.
And talk about queerness, then I guess that ties everything in together. And, coming off the back of our last conversation, in our romantic relationship where you were exploring your queerness and your fluidity and where that was taking you, and we also had that threesome situation, and there's a lot, and I was seeing Catherine at the time as well.
You were seeing Catherine just before you and I got together.
That's right. And then we went up to Byron, and it was like, is it going to be a thing? And then it wasn't a thing, and so there was lots of like kind of sprinklings of things.
Yes. I feel like a good thing to cover within it around sexuality that both of us have right now is like, you're mostly dating men.
Yes.
And you've mostly dated men more publicly, but you are queer. And for me, I'm dating a boy.
I love that you said boy, not man.
Yeah, I love boy. I love boy. Like, I love that he's my boyfriend.
Oh, not your man.
Man friend. Man friend is weird.
It is weird.
Sometimes I call him a man, but yeah, boys are great.
Okay.
That I don't like being labelled gay.
Yeah, we did have a small chat about this, but yeah, let's unpack that.
All right, we'll start there. Okay, so for me, I don't consider myself gay. I can like prance around, and I love the theatrics of it, like on Instagram or whatever. If I'm on a live with someone, I'm like, I'm gay. And I can see how it's a bit misleading when someone's like, oh, Paisley's gay now. But it's that like, I've said it before of like, if I've been straight for a lot of my life, I need that pendulum to swing all the way across in my, because I consider myself sexually fluid, is that I want to be on the other side of the spectrum as well. And I feel like it's been really good, like in the manner of, since having a boyfriend who's bisexual, yeah, it's really hot for me to think about him being with a girl. And also it's made me want to, like, it's made me desire and miss and make me fantasize more about women. Where before I was like, I'd done that. And still like that right now. But I was like, I'm done with women for now, Done. Like, it's June now. Last time I was with a woman was September.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time. That's as long as I've been without a woman.
What's your experience like, just in terms of, I'm curious what it is that you love currently about boys or men or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, you know, there are distinctions between like gender and sex and, you know, genitalia and energy and things like that and essences. And for you, what are the aspects of the people that you're seeing that excite you now, you know, which are, I guess, yeah, you know, cis men?
Mm-hmm. First, I just want to cover one thing of around the gay thing is like, I don't like being labeled gay just like people will label me shaman. Because it's like, I get introduced. A while ago at Frequency, Nardine was like, hey everyone, this is Paisley, he's a gay shaman. And I was just like...
Oh, wow, you're two trigger words.
I was like, eye roll. Like, it's just like all of a sudden this role that I have to fulfill now. This is what someone expects as a shaman. I've never called myself a shaman before. I just stay away from that word because it's... I'm not in any kind of indigenous tribe that I've been elected that. But yeah, like it's just like, oh, then now all my principles have to be as a gay man and as a shaman. So yeah, I sort of put them in the same thing as like that label. Just yeah, it's a fraction of me that I explore, but it's not the whole me, and I don't want that narrative to be me.
I understand that. I totally get that. I think, you know, this is the tricky thing with language and with labels is that, especially with words around identity, because everybody will have a slightly different definition of, you know, that word and relate it to their own personal identity in a different way. For me, I really love calling myself gay. Like, even though I know technically... you know, or maybe it's not technical. I don't actually know what the exact definition of gay is, and I'd be keen to like look that up. But, you know, when you think gay, you think male to male.
Yeah, or same sex, but mostly male to male.
Mostly male to male, and if it's woman to woman, then it's lesbian. But it's funny, like I relate more to the word gay than to lesbian. Like it's, I don't know why it's like that, but like for me, gay has this association. This is just my personal association. It's like there's a rebellious energy to it, and I love that. Like the word gay, you know, means happy and joyful.
Yeah.
And so like, just knowing that I am gay, but I'm also like, yeah, like I also love men. It doesn't take away my gayness. Is like I just am gay. I don't know. It's like I guess it's like the word queer. It doesn't matter.
Love queer. I love queer.
Maybe because I'm not like, because I don't present as a man, and I wasn't assigned male at birth. Maybe I don't have the kind of resistance to like being seen as gay.
I don't personally mind. Like, if someone thinks I'm gay, that's fine. But I just don't really like being introduced as a. I don't like that. Like
wearing it as a.
Yeah, I don't want that to be my like promoting me as gay. It's like it's you know especially after announcing a boyfriend, so much talk from down home of people, friends down there, like everyone's asking, you know, like, oh, Paisley's gay now. Has he got a boyfriend? He's gay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whatever, you know, like it doesn't faze me. But yeah, just personally, like I don't want, to be introduced as, I don't want that just to be boxed into gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally hear that. It's like I wrote a piece the other day. I haven't shared it yet because it's a little bit edgy. And it was funny. I actually wrote it just before Instagram introduced pronouns on the things.
Yes.
And I wrote it because somebody asked me, like, how come you haven't put your pronouns up on your bio? And I didn't reply to them at the time. I can't remember what it was, but then I ended up writing this whole piece about it and how my pronouns don't define me. Like, I understand that people find a lot of liberation, personal liberation and personal definition when they choose their pronouns and when they introduce themselves with their pronouns. Like, I love that. I respect that. But it's funny, like, for me, it's like one of the last things that I think about when I am introducing myself, you know, in terms of how I personally identify and how I'd like people to see me. It's not at the forefront of my identity. Like, I I don't introduce myself as my race. I don't introduce myself as my gender. I don't introduce myself, as my sexual orientation or my age.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, that's a thing, introducing as your sexual orientation. Why? You don't need to, like, that thing, like, for instance, with Nardine. My gay friend Paisley is like, why didn't you introduce anyone else as your straight friend,
Yeah, I hear that. I totally hear that. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's because it's still seen as abnormal in some way. It's like out of the norm. And
it's a bit like, I'm not putting this on Nardine. Nardine was just probably having fun, but like anyone is like, it's like saying hi in different ways. Like, hey, this is my trans friend. This is my black friend. It's like, I've got this exotic person. I'm inclusive, like... I have a diversity of people,
I get that. But also, when it comes to you have worn those things at the forefront of your brand and personality, and you have really used your personal exploration of your sexuality and your fluidity and your identity in your brand.
Yes.
So it's like... for a long time it was the shamanic stuff and the rituals and all of that stuff, and then it became your sexuality. So it's like, I guess that's the thing about brand. Branding is about reducing people to a two-dimensional character.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you're this multi-dimensional person, but in order for me to understand you at the most basic level, what are the two identifying features? You're gay and you're a shaman. There you go.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it's really strong branding for people to know you as that.
Yeah, it is.
But we have this like I don't want to be boxed into these two things. Like, I don't even know what mine would be. If you were to define me as two words, what would the words be?
Just artist.
Yeah, boring.
Like a honesty artist, vulnerability artist.
That's boring, but it's not like titles,
Well, you gotta go out and find them.
It's like...
But I love artist. Like, if someone's like artist, because rather than, if someone, introducing Steph Freeman, a friend of ours, like, yes, she paints a lot, but she does other things, It's like, if I just, my friend Steph is a painter. It's like, but then that's just box done. It's like, no, I actually draw, I graphic design, but when you say, Steph's an artist, they go, what kind of art do you do? Yeah,
it's definitely more of an open-ended, it's a bigger room.
Yeah, it's a bigger place to build the house, rather, like, it's like you give the foundation to someone rather than go, this is where they live.
It's not specific,
and that's not where they actually live.
But the thing with branding and brand recognition, I know we're not talking about branding and brand recognition, but, it's like, we do want those very simple things that we can hang on to so I can understand you. Like, I remember, even teaching Bossing the Scene when I was running that program and working with artists and getting their brands together and whatever. Everyone has so much resistance to saying who they sound like.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I don't sound like anyone. There's no one in the world that I'm similar to. I'm just me. And, artists have this strong...
No, a lot of my life is built off referencing other people. That's how I guess that's a big part of my shapeshifter thing, is like, I want a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person. Like when I'm rebuilding my brands and whatnot, I'm like, okay, cool. I like what Troye Sivan's doing. I like what this person's doing. I like what Moses Sumney's doing. I like what this photographer's doing. I'm going to start molding my own expression into this quadrant of people. But I get how a lot of people are like, no, I'm so unique. Yes, let's draw back to the question you asked earlier.
Yeah, so... personal identity aside, what is it that you're loving in your current exploration? I mean, because it's not only that you're in same-sex relationship, but you're also currently exclusive, right?
Yes, we're monogamous. So what do I like personally about this relationship, or about dating men, or
maybe like a combination?
Made me start dating men. So for me was... a big part of wanting to date men, and what I'm enjoying now, is like doing boy things, man things, like wrestling, getting muddy, going to the gym, talking shit, whatever it is, like going up bush, going on hikes, which I also do with women and non-binary people, but there's a certain essence of the way that we've been conditioned into who we are. And so it's like, yeah, hanging with the boys, I always get such a great time. I spend a lot of time with girls, with women, but when I get to hang with the boys, there's this like this, I'm with the boys, like they get it, we get it. And then also getting to, at the end of the day or throughout the day, get to have intimate times, like beyond. I've always loved finding the new edges of intimacy with just male friends, like me and Atlas have continued to deepen into what is intimacy between us. When he arrived, one of my favorite things is he's in the car and we're holding hands. I'm in the back seat, he's in the front seat, and we're holding hands and talking, like so naturally, so beautiful. But yeah, like going out with Tim, poor Tim, as he slowly gets to know me, but I just spill all the tea all the time. It's like, I started going to gym with him. I've been to gym with him maybe like 4 or 5 times now. And we've like had sex in the locker rooms, like
hectic.
And that's hectic, right? Like, and it's such a great taboo for me. I love the taboo.
You love that shit.
I love the taboo. And just like, just the idea, like even at the gym, like we're working out and I'll like give him a slap on the ass. And like, I love that idea of like, are they thinking, the boys giving each other a slap on the ass, or do they know that we're actually boyfriends,
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious.
But at the gym,
pearls and your...
but I'm not wearing that at the gym.
Okay.
I'm wearing like a singlet or a tight shirt and short shorts, and that's it, like just the same as what everyone else is wearing. I'm covered in tattoos. I think when I'm not wearing all the accessories, I'm quite straight passing. But yeah, like I love that, like, go on a hike, veer off, have a sexual time, amazing, like just these little things I really enjoy is like, again, breaking down these barriers of what a man is and also what gay is as well, both sides, like, because this is stereotyping both sides of men, what men do and what gay people do is like, I've dated men and I've taken them out on a hike and they wouldn't touch the mud, and I'm like, oh my god, like a big part of not wanting to date women is this thing of these blocks of things I want to do that are a bit more in a men's category, and then you're doing that, so unattractive. You do you, that's fine, but for me personally, dating, so there's a lot of this being able to be bros, be the boys, but also being able to have intimacy and poetry and kissing and holding hands and making love and romance.
What's coming up for me as you speak is like taking it maybe to the more philosophic realm for a minute, is about sameness. And I think, we might classify, okay, like for you find a relief and a comfort in the sameness of men, is that we like the same things, we have the similar body, we grew up with similar backgrounds or whatever, and it's the same, like women love being in groups of women because we are the same, and it's the same for like, for me, for example, like I often feel uncomfortable when I'm the only, person of color in the room because I know I'm not the same as all the white people there. So I think it's a part of how we're designed is to seek out the sameness and to know that, I belong here, or there's a commonality that makes me feel like, because it's funny, like even, people who are extremely sorry, I'm just gonna put my legs on you.
This is where we ended on the last podcast.
That's true. I need to.
Starting early.
Like even people who are advocates for diversity and advocates for, this, or, even like queer activists and whatever, like you're still gonna want to hang out with people who are quote unquote the same as you or similar to you. It's like, why do we hang out? It's not because we're all different, we hang out because we're all queer. Or why do we all hang out because we're all black, or because we're all this, or like that. We have to find those points of similarity, and I think that's not a bad thing.
No.
I think that is actually something really innate and intrinsic to us.
We're tribal animals. We're tribal beings. We stick to what we know, what's safe, and how we survive.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, I also see this pathology in us as humans to also other ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And we have so much wounding around being othered by society, particularly by mainstream society, you know, heteronormative or patriarchal or white society. And anytime we're othered by society, there's a big wound there. But it's been internalized maybe, or maybe is also part of our natural pathology.
That's going to say anyway.
True. Is that we have to be significant. We have to be special.
Yes.
We have to be different.
Yes.
We have to be other. So, you know I do it, and we all do it in different ways. I've seen it in my clients. I see it in myself. You're in a group of people where you're the same as everyone, but you don't want to assimilate and you don't want to merge completely because you have to keep this level of separateness and otherness. So you find a reason why you're different to everyone else.
Yes.
So I'll do it like if I'm hanging out with all my activist friends, I'm like, I'll be the more like, you know, spiritual bridge person. I'll be like, you know, not so angry. I'll be like more loving and compassionate.
Yeah,
or if
one love.
Yeah, one love, you know. Or if I'm hanging out with like the dancing Eros babes, for example, you know, and they're all like in their feminine embodiment, I'll be like the more feminist one. And if I'm hanging out with, you know, whatever, like I'll find a way to other myself, and I might not even say it to them, but within myself, there's this like voice that's like, yeah, but I'm not like them.
Yeah.
I'm different because XYZ, insert point of difference here.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, you know, that we have that like duality within us.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been like very curious about, because as someone that, like as myself, that's been journeying queerness, is like, I still don't really have lots of queer male friends. I just don't have queer male friends. And it's like that thing, that tribe thing is like, that side of me doesn't feel super necessary to go into. I obviously continue to explore it and continue to try and make friends in that area, because there is a lot of medicine that I get from it. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, whatever, whoever I hang out with. So that's a fascinating journey. It's like, oh, I got my guy now, you know. And same with him, he doesn't have lots of queer friends that he hangs out with regularly.
I think also it comes down to, you know, being able to find points of sameness or points of commonality with every person.
Yes.
So it's like that's what I mean. It's like if your defining identification feature is your queerness or your gender or you're this or you're that, then yeah, you might feel the strong need to belong in a group of people who share that same identity. But if you, like for me, like I primarily identify as a spiritual human being. That's my primary identity.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I see myself. I'm fucking infinite. I am in this eternal love affair with the universe that is, you know, infinitely unfolding. That's my primary identity. So people who I connect with most are people who share that value.
Same value.
That point of commonality. It's like we're growing in this infinity of life, and that's who we are.
Yes.
I don't care if you're fat, skinny, short, tall, black, whatever. It's like who are you in your soul?
Yeah, that's a big thing to talk about, is like that value system is, for me, like it might seem like, for instance, like on Instagram or something like that, the queerness is at the very forefront currently, you know, but the value is the shapeshifter, the person that goes into it, that finds the art in something that is diverse and is willing to go all the way into something. So yeah, it's that
yes,
I don't need to hang out with other queer people. Yeah, if there's queer people that have that same value, yes. And same with the shaman thing, same with the record label thing, the same with the whatever, the psychedelic person, whatever identity I've worn at whatever time is, those are the people I navigate towards. So that's why it looks like a motley crew at times, you know. It's not we're all like the queer activists or the shaman crew. It's that you're journeying a slut, like, and putting that out there, and you're ugly and whatnot, and I'm over here being pretty and gay and doing little rituals or whatever, and this person's over, Atlas is being the open world, all dressed in black person, whatever.
Nadine's being like the, you know, Capricorn, you know, like
slay your career, start businesses,
bitch,
you know, like, and she's got a bit of like the ghetto fabulous look happening at the moment. So,
Yes.
we're all doing our different thing, and it's, none of us, our brand of who we represent ourselves as
But
is
that's
not
what
the
it
same.
is. It's like, sorry, I cut you off.
That's all right.
It's like, because it's all of that to me is still ego personality.
Yeah.
And it's not that important to me. Like, it is important on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like sometimes I'm in spaces with people who share identities with me. For example, like if I were to meet someone who's also like, a culturally mixed person who also came from a Christian background, who also found spirituality and, left the church, who also loves sexual liberation and freedom, who also, it's like, I'd be like, oh my God, you're my twin sister. I'd feel like so amazing. But all those things are only exciting because it's like the human personality part.
It's more anchor points of reference.
Exactly. Anchor points of shared reality, but underneath that. And that's why I love our crew, because we are very different.
Yes.
Like Nado's is like Westy, speaks Arabic at home, Coptic Orthodox, and also like is extremely intelligent, like, and has all of these things. And you've got Atlas, who's like, queer but super straight also, and like this philosophic, like, crazy madman who is terrible with money, like the worst with money. And then, like we're all so different in our own ways. But the places where we cross over are really beautiful and deep and very infinite.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm curious in that, if we reel back to identity in the way we're perceived, how do you feel around being someone that dates a lot of men, but identifies as queer or gay for yourself?
I mean, it's like, that's the thing. Like, I have wrestled with it a lot because I think identity gets messy often when we're worried about how people see us.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like, I need to go sleep with a woman so I can still earn the title of being queer. And it's like, oh my God, that's so fucking ridiculous. But it's there,
Yeah.
And then also like, my own personal spiritual journey and, growth journey is like, why do I have this compulsive need to sleep with men? How much of that is my genuine nature versus how much of that is my conditioning versus how much of that is daddy wounds? How much of that is this, like I was shamed for being queer when I was little, you know, like there was a lot of Christian conditioning around that and a lot of like really painful, traumatic events. Cause I, the first time I was with a girl was kindergarten. That's very fucking young. I was 4 years old in kindergarten.
In like, I'm making off a percentage, but like 80% of my clients, their first sexual experience is very young, like kindergarten, with the same sex, or with like, even more taboo, is like brother or sister or something like that,
Well, yeah, that's my story.
Yes.
I have sexual stuff with family members and also extended family, which because we always had a lot of people living at home. They were male, and I'm just like, well, do I only sleep with men because I'm traumatized?
Yes.
I mean, I could be actually just a lesbian.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my true identity.
Yes.
But I don't know, like I just don't care enough.
Yes.
I'm just kind of like, if I meet a person and I feel a vibe, and I feel like drawn to go there, I will go there. And maybe some, big change will happen soon and I'll be like, fuck, turns out I don't like men at all. And I only like women. And if that happens, I'll just honor that. But yeah, I guess sometimes I do feel a little bit like imposter-ish on both sides.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not really straight, I'm not really queer, I'm not really, but that's the fucking theme of my whole life. That is like, that's my biggest thing and I love it, is that, I was born into this family where my mum's white, my dad's Indonesian, and, it's like being in between worlds and, all this between worlds, like that's informed my identity. So I get a big payoff from never being in one camp.
Yeah, that's me too. Same with the trauma thing. When I was first like really like, all right, I'm gonna go date men. When I first had fallen in love with Phoenix, and I was like, oh my God, I like men as well. was like, oh, is this daddy wounds? Is this because I was inappropriately touched by a male at an early age? Like, is this just all trauma playing out, and there was times where I'd just go down that rabbit hole, and it's like, no, just fucking come to the surface, and like, what feels good and isn't doing damage to me, and that doesn't feel good, and it is doing damage to my, like, it's giving me mind parasites by going down there. Like, it's infecting my mental health by trying to unpack something that I just don't know,
Yeah, I think it's trying to unpack a trauma that is like not actually sometimes necessary to unpack is just like, why would you do that? Just like leave it alone. You know, it's not an issue right now. No. And if it becomes an issue later, then you will obviously be ready at that time to unpack it. I remember like when I first so after I had River, I had like real big problems breastfeeding, and like all these health problems started coming up. So that was the first time I kind of started looking into alternative medicine and, you know, discovering there were other ways to be well. And I went to see this kinesiologist who did like all sorts of things. Like he was a chiropractor, Chinese medicine, blah, 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 all this stuff, healer. And he did some muscle testing on me to find out the cause of some issues that I was having. And he was like, oh, something happened when you were this age. And I immediately knew what it was. It was like some big sexual trauma, and I knew that, but I didn't have access to the memories properly yet. And I asked him, and I was like, do I need to know exactly what happened in order for me to move through this? And he was like, it's kind of like a Pandora's box, If you shut it out for a reason. And if you go digging around unnecessarily, like, sometimes that's actually not the best thing for you. Yeah. And at that time, I didn't have any frameworks. I didn't have any skills to be able to hold what was inside that Pandora's box. Not until years later, when I finally, actually was on a healing journey, was on a more spiritual journey, and actually learned some frameworks for dealing with trauma and all of this stuff, and then ended up opening the Pandora's box and, finding the memories and all of that stuff. But if I had done it, whenever that was, it would have fucked me up.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's, like with the trauma stuff is, I put that to the side, it doesn't feel super important to go into. And then later in life, an opportunity came up at ISTA to play out, to like reclaim and consciously move through that instance of the boy creating that sexual experience of me. And I got to like actually move through it, and go, okay, that's good now, And Tim being the first man I've dated now boyfriend, and he's taller than me, he's more musclier than me, he's older than me. There's been moments, like I remember the first time he picked me up and I was like, daddy wound, like instantly. I was like, like breathe into it, let him know I'm journeying something, and then it's like, okay, cool. Like, now is the time to face it, Move through it a bit, and it's like, yep, I still into boys. Yes. I don't just like boys because of trauma, Yeah. And, who knows? Somewhere down the path, it might be like, actually, I just like girls. Yeah. Or it might be like, I only like boys, or whatever,
Keeping that level, and that's why I think it's important, like, to recognize that all of this stuff is just like a personality, ego, like relating. For me, like relating is a very like ego thing. It's about me, who I am, my personality, but like underneath that and what I'm actually in service to and what I'm actually devoted to and what is my North Star is love. And love gives zero fucks about what body you're in or what your name is or how it's like love as the fucking universal life force, that love as who we are, love as like this fundamental element of the universe. Like that really is what drives me and what feeds me and what nourishes me. And that's really what I'm looking for, or not looking for, but like is, I'm in relationship with love as opposed to people. So I feel like to me, that gives me this kind of lightness. And like, in 10 years, if I discover that maybe I'm asexual or maybe this or maybe that, it's like, okay, because it was never about the label or the diagnosis or the orientation or the blah blah blah. It's always, for me, been about love.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to journey. I think I got to do a lot more of that, you know, with you as we live. But, you know, for instance, like starting to date men, and now with Tim, is like, it is also very body influenced right now. It's because of there's these specific things that I've wanted to explore with men, like with like cis men. So yeah, it's like I've like gone from like diving all the way into like that like soul love, deep into the tantra of that, and now there's a bit more of like coming back to the physical. And when it's ready, I'd love for Tim to go more into the tantra of love and energy and breath and heart and soul. But yeah, I'm really enjoying just like very body functioned love. You know, it's also, we love each other for more than each other's bodies, but you know, when it comes to sex and expression and hugging and carrying and touching and you know, I'm very like, yeah, it's your body, you know, that I want right now.
But that's the fun part of being human. It's like, what's the point of being human if you don't get to actually, you know, enjoy it? And what's the point of having an ego if you don't get to actually like, you know,
stroke it, make it pleasure your ego.
Totally. Like, you know, I'm like that as well. Like, I'm first to admit, I'm shallow as fuck. When I am on a dating app, I'm looking at the pictures going, are you hot or not? It's like, fuck, I'm shallow, but it's there, and I'm not going to shame myself for it. But if I'm at a bar or if I'm at a retreat or a workshop and I meet someone who physically might not fit, you know, the picture of what I am attracted to, if I can feel their heart, and it's like, I might go there. You know, like I've been with people, like all different kinds of people, but if I'm on a dating app, it's a visual medium. I'm looking at who the fuck's hot, what type of body you got, you know. And it's like, and also, yeah, like I don't think there's any shame in that. It's just to be aware that that's my human, that's my ego. It's cool.
It's really fascinating last night. So this is a weird one, but Tim and I and his roommate Chrissy are watching Survivor right now. But there's a reason. So his roommate Chrissy has watched every season of Survivor from whichever, Australia, all across the world, America. Wow. And I was saying, so because of a friend of, like an Instagram friend of mine who's also been on the podcast, Ken Cole, was on Survivor, and I had mentioned it to her. She's like, oh, yep, I know him. He's from season this. It was Millennials versus Gen X. God. Can we watch it? I was like, all right, you know, let's watch it. And we were on episode 2 last night, and like, Ken is like by far the trait of the season, you know, like he looks like fucking Tarzan. He's a big fucking built guy, muscly as fuck, gentle blue eyes, like a spiritual dude. Like he just ticks every fucking box, you know.
Amazing.
And last night, so I'm like slowly, because I'm big buff man is not usually my type, but the more I've been journeying, I'm like, Ken, because at first Tim's like, oh yeah, Ken's the trait of the season, and I was like, you're right, you know, he's really good looking. And then last night he's like, actually I like this guy Zeke, and he's like, not at all, you know, he's on all the way the other, but he's alternative, and he's like got a good vibe about him and whatnot. And I was like, oh, like that, like seeing how much I've gone, because I used to love the more I still do, but like alternative, doesn't matter what your body shape looks like, it's how you present yourself, it's your energy, rah. Though Ken still ticks all these things, I was like, oh wow, like look how much this has changed, you know, for me at the moment. And just I've had moments of judging myself for it, like, oh, you're really shallow at the moment, but then like, just journey it, you know, continue to journey it, just journey it. Yeah
I think that's the thing. Like I teach this to my clients, and, you know, I have to keep reminding myself, you can't shame yourself into change. You can't shame yourself into submission. Like, it doesn't work. You might temporarily change, but then you have to, like, it catches up with you later. And so for me, it's like, if I'm doing something, all right, I'll have an energy of curiosity about it and be open to looking at it so that I have awareness around it. But I'm not just going to go, you're so shallow, like shut it down. Like I left my marriage because the sex was shit. And it was so hard for me to leave that marriage. I was so fucking unhappy. And I just kept cheating on my husband because I was so unhappy and so unfulfilled and couldn't communicate. And there were so many like incompatibilities, but I was brainwashed to believe that that is the worst thing you could ever do to your child. If you divorce, that's like you're setting your child up for like a lifetime of unhappiness, and then also it's like, you know, once you're married forever and that's it. And for me to decide, and I was like how can I possibly leave a marriage because the sex is not good? Like how shallow am I?
Yeah,
it was the worst. But now, you know, 10 years on, and I know myself so much better now, intimacy is one of my highest values.
Yes.
So for me to continue in that relationship where my highest value is missing, of course I feel like shit.
Yes.
It's like intimacy is like a fucking top soul value for me. And no wonder last year I was so fucking depressed in a long distance relationship with someone on the other fucking side of the world. I didn't have the intimacy I needed. I was awful. And now that I'm getting my needs met by whatever fucking means necessary, it's like I am in charge of making sure my values are my values. And living my values.
Yes. Yeah. And an interesting value clash, you know, you just mentioning your marriage. And then I was thinking about like, you know, because to majority of people on Instagram, I'm like, oh shit, you know, this perception of, because if you were married just recently, it's like, I wanted to be like, no, not that one, everybody. Before, she was married to someone else.
I was married to my son's dad a long time ago.
And this value thing that's been coming up for me, I had it after I left when we recorded the first one. And just like even thinking about now is like, I've talked about Tim on every single one so far. And that's allowing myself, not him, allowing myself to make him such a big part of my identity right now is such an edge for me. I'm sharing so much, you know, about him and us and my feelings for him, you know, and having a platform and doing that, you know, where that's not what he does, you know, he is very loving and affectionate to me in person, but just perception wise of online, I'm out here, I'm like, fuck, what happens, you know, we're gonna, however many we record first before putting it out, what happens if we break up before it even comes out? That like level of embarrassment or whatever.
Well, you know, it's like, because we live public lives as well, you know, when I broke up with Ez, there was a big shame there, massive shame, because I was so public about it. Every fucking few days I was like talking about how amazing my relationship is. Oh, he's so this, he's so that, and fucking, oh god, soulmate, blah blah blah. I would fucking, you know, punch myself in the face now, because it doesn't mean it wasn't real at the time, but it was quite naive. And so now when I see other people do that, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, that's alive for you right now. That's beautiful. Like, love it while it's alive, you know? Because statistics say it's not going to be alive forever. That's just statistical.
That's so... Well, I think we weren't talking about this on air, but before we're talking about, like, grief in love and, like, knowing that it's not gonna last, but feeling the opening love, but then also the closing, not the closing, but that surge of grief, you know. And that's a big thing, is like also that on the other side of the spectrum of me feeling like this sort of shame I'm talking about Tim so much, is like at the same time I really want to let it be alive, and I'm sad that it will ever end, you know, that even if we do end up together forever, that there's probably going to be a time where I'm like, I'll do a podcast and I won't want to talk about him, or like, and go for ages, and I'll get home and I'm like, did another podcast, it's like, oh, did you say anything about us? I'm like, nope.
and we never know what the fucking reason is, you know. Two things come to mind for me. One is obviously, you know, what James shared before he passed, and do you want to tell the people?
So loving someone, no, how's it go? Grieving someone.
Grief is loving someone
that is already dead, or that's gone.
Grief is loving someone when they're gone.
Yeah, grief is loving someone when th're gone.
And love is grieving someone while they're still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You remembered it better than me.
Yeah, I thought you would nail it.
I had it on the back of my hand at one point, but it's gone.
I want to get that tattooed on me. It's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. We could do it together.
Let's do that. A bonding tattoo.
Yes,
Yeah, I want to say that again so it lands. So
Yes.
it's grief is loving someone while they're still here, and love is grieving someone. No. Grief is James, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I'm butchering your wisdom. Grief is loving someone when they're gone.
Yes.
Love is grieving someone while they're here.
Yes.
That's what it is. And I had that moment, so last night, basically, I'm falling in love with someone at the moment. And, obviously didn't expect it. Like, you never know when it's going to happen, and you just know when it's happening, and you're like, oh, there we go. You just got into that little space there. And there's a moment last night where he was singing this song to me, this Pink Floyd song. It's called Mother, I think. I'm sitting on his lap, and he's singing to me, and I'm just totally blissing out. I can feel my heart just blowing the fuck up. And then I'm just like, I'm watching myself almost from this like bird's eye view, like watching a movie scene of this like perfect moment with these two lovers embracing, and he's singing to her, and she's just like there receiving it, and it's so beautiful. And I'm like observing the moment and simultaneously feeling the beauty of it. And then I get hit by this intense wave of grief of like, this is transient. Like this is going to fade. It's going to end, and you don't know how it's going to fade. It could be that next week you have a fight and it's over. It could be that you're together for 30 years and he dies. It could be that the love runs out. Like you just have no idea, which reminds me of what Atlas said in the Open World Workshop just when he was here last, and I think he got it from somewhere else, but it's like, you never know when the last time your parents pick you up is. At some point...
Like physically pick you up.
Yeah, physically, yeah. Like, because they carry you around and you're crying and mum puts you on her hip and all that stuff. And at some point, they just stopped. They just put you down and they never picked you up again.
Yeah, when he said that, I was like, oh!
It's so brutal. And it's so true and stark. And that is the stark... like brutal honesty of just like just the total transience of life.
When I got home I was like, okay, I'm sorry that I don't pick you up anymore. You're
really?
too heavy. I'm sorry that I don't pick you up anymore.
I thought about that with River. Like, when's the last time? Because we used to sleep in the same bed until he was old,
Yeah.
And like we would snuggle and hold hands before we went to bed, like every night. And then at one point it just stopped.
Yeah.
And I think it was the other night when we were somewhere and we held hands again, and it was just this moment of like, oh fuck, it's still there. Like this is one of the last moments that will ever be there. It was really beautiful, and yeah, I'm sad that fades.
Yeah, the last moments, like, we're off on a tangent, but we'll go back, is like one that I think about, and we discussed this when we were up in Byron, me, you and Tim, I think it was like around, because we were just a group of us naked in the sauna, and that I remember fighting to the very end of like the last time you're allowed to be naked as a child, where you're just allowed to be naked around the house or at the beach or whatever. There's a time where it's like your genitals, your whatever, your body is inappropriate now.
Yeah, it's inappropriate. You're sexualized now.
Yeah.
I had that moment too, big time. I hated wearing clothes when I was a kid. I hated it. And my mum was, I'm lucky. I'm so fortunate. My mum was pretty, she's a white woman. She kind of grew up in the like flower power, age. And her parents died when she was young. So she didn't get too much of that conditioning, but she was quite free with me. But, at home, there was a lot of culture, religion around, and a lot of men around.
Yes.
And so of course she would have felt that unsafety as well, and that's her not even knowing that I was sexually abused. She didn't even know that, but of course she would have felt some things. So she would force me to wear undies. I'd be so upset, and she'd force me to wear undies, and I'd be like, fuck this shit, I wouldn't say that to her, but I would be so angry that I had to wear clothes, because it just felt like, why?
Yeah.
Why do I have to wear clothes? There's no reason for me as a young girl who just feels herself and free. I don't understand why I have to wear a shirt and my brother doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make any sense.
bringing it back to the love and grief thing is, journeying with Tim, is that first boyfriend, and there's two levels of grief there, like love and grief of like, I'm so in love, I'm having this beautiful journey. The grief of, oh, like this is, what if I don't, I lose my first boyfriend, like you're my first boyfriend, this is a special thing, and maybe one day that'll end. And then on the other side is like, oh no, like what if I never get to be with anyone else ever again?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Double-sided. I don't want you to leave, but I don't, and there's obviously polyamory and everything else, but just that, or what if I'm just gay forever now? What if I never be with a woman again? All these different levels of like, I'm falling in love, which means these parts fade away, I grieve these other things,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great medicine.
That moment with Ez, getting into that relationship and thinking, is this the last person that I'll ever be with? And I was like, not okay with that. I was not okay. And that's why I said to him, I was like, I would love it if maybe after 5 years we could, explore possibly opening things up. Because I know myself so well. I am a slut for love. I am.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by people, and I love that spark of curiosity that happens when you meet someone who is more real than everyone else. It's like, I was talking to this guy I'm seeing last night. I was telling him, like, I was, in my fucking bliss state.
Yeah.
And I was like, you are more real to me than everyone else. And that's what it is. When you see someone, you're like, you could be in this room and you're just like, that person, I don't know what it is about you, but you're so much more alive and you speak to me in a particular way and I feel it. And it's like, if you're in an exclusive monogamous relationship, traditional, the way that everyone does it in society, that's already wrong.
Yes.
Like, that's already cheating.
Yes.
And you never get to explore what that could be because you're afraid of doing the wrong thing. And it's like such a shame, because who knows what was meant to happen with that spark and that connection.
Yeah. It's a big thing, like learning how to honor that connection, sometimes without having to see if it's sex first.
Absolutely,
or like going straight into that. Yeah, definitely. That like, it has been a cool thing of like the specialness. I went to a dinner recently where I knew 2 people and there was about 30 people there. And I got there pretty late. And I walk in and I'm like, okay, I know no one here. I've been invited. I'm just going to go around the table and hug everybody. And as soon as I scanned the table, the like very last, like maybe like 3/4 down to number 27 person, I was like, him. That I already know I have a special bond with him, and I'm making my way through and I eventually get to him, and he was the only artist there. He was the only, like quite fluid being, we sat and we just fucking yarned and got along and talked about art and like catharsis and all these, he could read my
Runes.
my runes. I was like, just instantly, I knew, I just went, him,
Yeah. That's the amazing thing about human beings. There's so much magic that we don't have the understanding of, but it's obvious. It's there, I was on a date a few weeks ago with this guy who is a chemical engineer. He's very science mind, and we were talking about love and, like, what is love? How do you know you're in love? Like, what is it? Because he's quite a scientific person, he didn't have the explanations for it. He would just say, it's just something different. That's how he would explain it. That's just something different. And it was just fascinating because it's like, it doesn't matter what you do for a living, whether you're a fucking scientist or whatever. There are certain things in the world, there are certain mysteries that we humans know on a level that is below our analytical, conscious, scientific mind. It's like felt physically, or it's like somehow in our ancestral memory, or it's like somehow in like our, mythological body or something. But there's like certain themes and experiences that are so magical, that you just can't deny them.
No. Yeah. Those moments are just, I think you can get better at seeking them. Definitely. You can get better at identifying them.
or curating your life in a way that facilitates more of those moments.
More of those
for
moments.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's being in flow state.
Yes.
When you're in flow state and you're just like all the synchronicities and like you think of a person and boom, they're there. You run into them and and you're like whatever it is that you ask for and then it magically appears. I mean that happens to us a lot, but I think living in cities can diminish that often.
Yeah, in certain ways, yes. Like Byron. I just need to be back there.
It's different.
It's just the magical land. Like, just those moments happen so often for me, personally.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I had that even when I was up in Byron the last time. Like, I was thinking about someone and I ran into them. It's just like, of course I did.
Well, that was, James was one of the best people for that. He always came at the right time. Always at this like, and it was just always the most random spots. I remember one time, he's so tuned into it. And so am I guess. So one time, Shannon and I, when we were sort of seeing each other, we went to the Tea Tree Lakes. And we're there, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to see my friend James, and she didn't know him at that point. And then we're driving past, and him and Dane and Dave used to live on the road that went to Tea Tree Lakes. And I see James with like a cane and this like full sensory deprivation mask thing that completely blocks off your vision from all angles. And I was like, that's fucking James. So I pulled over and I like followed him into the house. And then I was like, Shannon was in the car and I was like, all right, I don't know what he's going to do, so I let him be. And the next day he messaged me and he goes, were you following me at some point yesterday? So we both tuned into one another, just that flow state of being in like, I sense someone around,
Yeah. And, is it psychic intuition or did you manifest that because you had the thought, which way does it go? I watched this epic doco recently called I Am. It's an old doco, but it's like fucking amazing. And it talks a lot about the heart field. That the field of the heart can preempt, can predict, knows what's going to happen before it's even been decided what's going to happen. That's like the crazy thing. It's like, and so I was watching that and just getting my mind blown open by the studies that they're doing at this place called the Heart Math Institute.
I've heard you talk about this.
It's
I think
so
you and
epic.
Atlas watch this.
We should watch it because it's so good. I really need to wee badly.
Oh yeah, I can entertain the folks. So wait, how much time have we got? Because
oh, hold up.
Yeah, I think we can slowly start wrapping up anyways now.
Yep.
So this abrupt ending then.
That was a very abrupt ending. Well, I mean, that's episode number 3. You'll have to just tune in again for the next episode. We could just pause it and I can
I don't want to go over an hour anyways.
Okay, cool.
So
all right, Danskis.
Soz everybody. That was an abrupt ending, but the flow state just was abrupt.
That was it. You got to honor it.
Yeah. All right.
End
Lots
scene.
of love and scene. Cut.